Did you know highly creative people spend up to 80% more of their time alone than the average individual? History is filled with examples of great minds, like Nikola Tesla, whose revolutionary inventions were born in quiet isolation, or Emily Dickinson, who crafted nearly 2,000 poems secluded from society's eyes. Yet despite these remarkable outcomes, society instinctively labels solitude as a negative trait. What makes isolation so powerful for some, yet so frightening for others? Welcome to the misunderstood, enigmatic world of the Sigma personality, a quiet outsider who deliberately chooses solitude over social validation. Unlike the confident alpha who thrives leading others, or the loyal beta who finds safety in the group, Sigmas reject these structures entirely. They walk their own path, remaining at society's edges, often misunderstood or feared because they refuse to conform. Throughout history, figures like Tesla or Dickinson were often seen as strange, troubled, or even dangerous. But beneath these labels lies a profound question. What if the Sigma personality isn't rejecting society at all? What if they're actually embracing something deeper, something society itself is too afraid to confront? Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche profoundly captured this struggle when he warned, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." Nietzsche's words challenge us at our core. Could it be that solitude isn't merely a preference, but rather a powerful declaration of personal freedom? Picture someone you know who prefers solitude. Have you ever dismissed them as antisocial or strange? But consider for a moment, what might they know about themselves that you don't yet understand? Perhaps what society fears most about Sigmas isn't their silence, but the courage they possess to be truly themselves, even when it means standing completely alone. Imagine being at a lively party, full of laughter, conversations, and socializing. Everyone appears connected, happy, and engaged. Yet in a quiet corner, there's one person observing silently, comfortably separate from the group. Your immediate instinct might be sympathy or concern. Surely they're lonely, isolated, or unhappy. But what if they're actually the most content person in the room? This scenario exposes one of society's greatest misunderstandings, confusing solitude with loneliness. Loneliness is forced isolation, something imposed from outside. Solitude, however, is entirely different. It's chosen, intentional, and deeply liberating. As philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer insightfully remarked, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom." Schopenhauer wasn't merely romanticizing solitude. Psychological research confirms his words. Chosen solitude boosts creativity, emotional resilience, and personal clarity. Yet despite compelling evidence, society stubbornly resists these truths. Think back to recent global lockdowns. Studies revealed something surprising. Introverted individuals who typically prefer solitude experienced improved emotional health during isolation, while socially outgoing people often struggled. This dramatically challenges our assumptions. If solitude can actually enhance well-being, why does society still treat it as something to avoid or pity? Recall Nikola Tesla, whose groundbreaking ideas emerged not in crowded rooms, but in isolated laboratories. Tesla explicitly advised, "Be alone, that is the secret of invention, that is when ideas are born." Emily Dickinson too found her poetic voice precisely by withdrawing into quiet solitude, creating works that still speak deeply today. If solitude has fueled humanity's greatest minds, why do we insist on misunderstanding it? Perhaps society's fear of solitude stems from something much deeper, an anxiety about facing ourselves without distraction or external validation. Solitude forces us to confront truths we often prefer to avoid. The Sigma personality challenges us directly. They aren't unhappy or lonely, they're liberated from society's noise. Far from rejecting connection, they're choosing authenticity over superficial approval. Ask yourself, have you ever truly embraced solitude, not as loneliness, but as liberation? Perhaps the quietest moments hold the loudest truths, truths that society fears, yet desperately needs. Think about the quietest person you've ever encountered. The one who seems distant in group settings, whose thoughts remain hidden behind silence. You might wonder, what are they thinking? Why don't they join in? Society often labels these quiet individuals as withdrawn, cold, or antisocial. But beneath that silence lies something deeper, a powerful psychological reality recognized by some of the greatest minds in psychology. Carl Jung, one of history's most influential psychologists, discovered something profound. True self-awareness often demands separation from society. Jung called this inner journey individuation, a lifelong process of uncovering your authentic self, hidden beneath layers of social expectations and conformity. To Jung, solitude wasn't mere isolation, it was a necessary pathway toward self-discovery. He described it eloquently, saying, "Everyone who becomes conscious of even a fraction of his unconscious gets outside his own time and social stratum into a kind of solitude." But Jung didn't just theorize about solitude, he lived it deeply. Jung openly admitted, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing. I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of words." For Jung, silence wasn't empty, it was restorative and transformative. Yet despite this powerful insight, society continues to view solitude suspiciously. Abraham Maslow, the groundbreaking psychologist behind the hierarchy of human needs, further reinforced Jung's insights. Through extensive research, Maslow found that emotionally healthy, fulfilled people often exhibited a strong need for solitude. Far from being pathological, their desire to be alone signaled extraordinary emotional maturity, independence, and psychological strength. Maslow himself said, "The healthiest individuals are positively attracted to solitude, precisely because solitude nourishes emotional independence and clarity." Yet, despite compelling psychological evidence, society stubbornly refuses to embrace these insights. Think of the quiet co-worker who avoids office gossip, only to be labeled anti-social or arrogant. Consider the student who prefers solitary reading to noisy social events, often unfairly judged as troubled or withdrawn. Colin Wilson, author of The Outsider, vividly illustrated how many of history's greatest minds, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Van Gogh, were misunderstood precisely because their solitude allowed them to see society clearly, free from its distractions and conformity. Sigmas embody this psychological reality in a powerful, often misunderstood way. Their choice to live apart isn't a rejection of connection, it's an embrace of authenticity. Rather than seeking superficial interactions, they quietly build emotional resilience through solitude, carefully selecting only those interactions that genuinely resonate with their deeper values. Perhaps the real question we must confront isn't why Sigmas prefer solitude, but why the rest of society fears being alone with itself. Could it be that facing our inner truths, free from external validation, is what truly terrifies us? Jung's and Maslow's powerful insights challenge us directly. Maybe our discomfort with solitude doesn't indicate something wrong with those who choose it. Perhaps it reveals the hidden insecurities we ourselves carry. Throughout history and literature, the figures who most captivate our imaginations often live on society's fringes, quietly defying expectations. Why do these solitary individuals fascinate us so deeply? Perhaps because their solitude isn't weakness, it's their greatest source of strength. Consider Hermann Hesse's famous character Harry Haller in Steppenwolf. Harry describes himself as a wolf of the steppes, an outsider fundamentally alienated from everyday life. His profound sense of isolation isn't loneliness, it's intentional independence. Hesse beautifully captures Harry's relationship with solitude, writing, "Solitude is cold, oh cold enough, but also wonderfully still and vast, like the cold stillness of space." Harry's solitude isn't deprivation, it's his refuge, providing clarity and emotional authenticity unavailable within society's noise. Similarly, Albert Camus' character Meursault in The Stranger refuses to conform to society's expectations. Meursault's blunt honesty alienates him from those around him. He's labelled strange and emotionless because he refuses to fake feelings or adhere to social norms. But beneath his outward quietness lies profound authenticity. Meursault's journey challenges readers directly, forcing us to question our own assumptions about conformity, solitude, and emotional honesty. Yet fiction alone doesn't fully illustrate the powerful reality of Sigma personalities. History offers even more compelling examples. Nikola Tesla, one of humanity's greatest inventors, spent the majority of his life working quietly alone, believing strongly that originality thrives in seclusion, free from outside influences. His solitude wasn't random isolation, it was strategic and purposeful, enabling him to revolutionize modern technology through quiet introspection rather than social interaction. Poet Emily Dickinson also chose solitude consciously, creating nearly 2,000 profound poems from within her secluded space. Dickinson famously wrote, "The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door." Her solitude wasn't isolation, it was liberation, allowing her voice to achieve a clarity and emotional power impossible amidst everyday distractions. Even culturally iconic figures embody the power of intentional solitude. Japanese Ronin, samurai without masters, consciously chose lives governed only by personal honor, quietly embodying dignity, strength, and moral clarity. The solitary cowboy of the American West symbolizes rugged independence, courage, and emotional strength derived precisely from solitary living. These archetypes weren't avoiding society because of fear. They consciously chose solitude because authenticity mattered more to them than social approval. Yet society frequently misunderstands and fears these archetypes. We romanticize their quiet strength, but paradoxically discourage real-life individuals from embracing it. We admire their authenticity, yet label real solitude as unhealthy or strange. But perhaps these narratives hold a deeper truth. Solitude isn't about deprivation. It's about purposeful choice, creativity, authenticity, and emotional resilience. These fictional and historical Sigma figures profoundly challenge our assumptions. Perhaps our greatest mistake isn't misunderstanding them, but fearing the very solitude they embrace. Their powerful examples remind us clearly. True strength, authenticity, and creativity rarely emerge from noisy conformity. Instead, they arise quietly, powerfully from within, discovered only when we dare to stand apart from the crowd. Have you ever encountered someone who prefers solitude and immediately assumed something must be wrong? Perhaps they're unhappy, arrogant, or antisocial. Most of us instinctively judge quiet people through the lens of our own fears and insecurities, mistakenly equating solitude with loneliness or emotional dysfunction. But what if these assumptions aren't just wrong? What if they're fundamentally unfair? Society's deepest misconception about Sigma personalities is rooted in the belief that solitude always signifies loneliness, unhappiness, or emotional emptiness. From childhood, we're taught that happiness is social. Schools encourage popularity, parents worry if their children isolate themselves, and workplaces celebrate teamwork over independence. Yet psychology reveals something deeply surprising. People who deliberately choose solitude often experience higher emotional intelligence, stronger resilience, and greater creativity. Research conducted during global lockdowns shockingly revealed that introverts and solitude seekers actually flourished emotionally in isolation, while highly social individuals suffered significantly. This evidence directly challenges society's core belief about solitude. Another misconception revolves around silence being perceived as arrogance or emotional coldness. Sigma individuals, with their reserved nature and selective social interactions, are frequently labeled aloof, indifferent, or even rude. But beneath their quiet exterior often lies remarkable emotional depth. Their silence isn't arrogance, it's authenticity. Sigmas prefer meaningful, deep connections over superficial interactions. choosing carefully who they engage with emotionally. If you've ever mistaken someone's quietness for arrogance, perhaps you overlooked the richness hidden behind their silence. Yet another damaging stereotype emerges from popular culture, depicting Sigma personalities as mysterious loners, isolated geniuses, or troubled outsiders. Critics dismiss the Sigma concept as internet-driven fantasy, overlooking genuine psychological traits like independence, introspection, and emotional resilience. While formal psychology doesn't officially recognize rigid categories like alpha, beta, or sigma, the traits these terms represent are undeniably real. Society mistakenly trivializes sigma behaviors rather than recognizing solitude as an authentic, powerful choice. From childhood onward, we're conditioned to fear solitude. Parents and teachers worry when children prefer spending time alone. Workplaces prioritize constant collaboration, and society labels independent thinkers as difficult or problematic. But psychologist Abraham Maslow's groundbreaking research profoundly challenges these assumptions. Maslow discovered emotionally healthy, fulfilled individuals often strongly prefer solitude, seeing it as nourishment rather than deprivation. To Maslow, solitude wasn't pathological. It was evidence of extraordinary psychological strength and self-awareness. Perhaps society's deepest misunderstanding is the belief that silence equates to emptiness. Carl Jung profoundly noted, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Sigmas remain quiet because their inner worlds, rich with emotions, insights, and reflections, aren't easily expressed superficially. Their silence doesn't indicate emptiness, it indicates depth and careful consideration. They choose carefully whom they trust with their thoughts, recognizing few genuinely appreciate the value of deeper conversations. Ultimately, society's misunderstanding of Sigmas reflects deeper fears about confronting our inner selves without distraction or external validation. Perhaps our discomfort with solitude reveals more about us than it does about them. Sigmas challenge us to reconsider our assumptions. Maybe the true loneliness isn't experienced by those who embrace solitude, but by those who fear facing themselves honestly, quietly, and authentically. What if society has been wrong about solitude all along? What if society has been wrong about solitude all along? Imagine the quietest person you know, the one others assume is isolated or lonely. What if that person isn't missing out? What if they're experiencing something profoundly powerful and deeply liberating? Sigmas remind us of a truth society often overlooks. Solitude isn't weakness, it's strength. Society mistakenly equates solitude with loneliness, assuming being alone always signals something negative. Yet for Sigmas, solitude is their greatest source of personal power. It's not passive withdrawal, but a deliberate, active choice. By stepping away from social expectations and superficial interactions, Sigmas discover clarity, creativity, emotional resilience, and moral courage that the noisy world often obscures. History demonstrates solitude's powerful potential. Nikola Tesla revolutionized technology precisely because he valued isolation, famously stating, "Originality thrives in solitude." Emily Dickinson, quietly writing alone, produced poetry that continues to resonate profoundly today. These individuals weren't limited by solitude, they were liberated through it. Their solitude provided clarity and creative insights impossible amid social distractions. Yet the power of solitude extends beyond creativity. It also builds emotional resilience and moral courage. Sigmas aren't easily swayed by social pressure or conformity. They remain firm in their convictions precisely because their emotional stability doesn't depend on external validation. Like a tree deeply rooted, they withstand life's storms quietly and powerfully. Albert Einstein captured this emotional strength perfectly, declaring, "I live in that solitude which is painful in youth but delicious in the years of maturity." Over time, solitude transforms from something society fears into something deeply cherished. Philosophers and spiritual leaders have always recognized solitude's profound value. Socrates transformed Western thought through quiet reflection and steadfast independence. Japanese ronin, samurai without masters, lived entirely according to personal codes of honor, embodying dignity, strength, and moral clarity through solitude. These figures show us true leadership and moral courage don't always require charismatic speeches or social validation. Genuine strength often arises quietly and authentically from within. Sigmas don't choose solitude because they dislike people. They choose solitude because authenticity matters more to them than popularity. They understand something profound. Solitude isn't emptiness, it's a sanctuary offering genuine clarity and peace. Their quiet lives offer a powerful lesson. True happiness, strength, and emotional fulfillment don't emerge from noisy conformity. They grow quietly from the courage to stand alone, embracing one's inner truth without compromise. Next time you see someone quietly apart, resist the instinct to judge or pity them. Instead, consider this deeply powerful possibility. Maybe they've discovered truths in silence that society desperately needs to understand. Maybe the strongest among us aren't those loudly asserting their opinions, but those brave enough to live quietly and authentically, embracing solitude as strength, reminding us all that sometimes the most powerful voice is the quietest whisper.